We got Joseph Lee standing by. And I just want to just say a few things before we get to him. Looking at some stuff right now, apparently 11,750 people have died in 2023 to gun violence. That's counting the mass shootings and all the other ones that's going together. And what I said earlier about it's a ripple effect with when we have mass shootings. People don't know what happens after it's over with. It affects families, it affects friends. And it doesn't end. It just don't stop because the news media stopped doing it. I'm sad to say that we just waiting for the next one to happen. We shouldn't have to do that. Our kids going to school are not safe. I mean, there was a sign a kid had up in my next. That should send chills down people on spines to see that. These are kids going to school. And now school violence with mass shootings is the #1 killer in America right now. Surpassed everything else. So, and then the parents of the shooter in Kentucky said in an interview that they know the kid had mental illness, but they didn't think he would do anything like this. So, they came out and spoke about that. So, but anyway, let me get off my soapbox because I'm just here helping out everybody. And we got the Impact Hour with Joseph Lee right here with Impact Services and Counseling. He is doing his thing. We talk offline a lot and we talk about some things that's going on, and he keeps us informed. So good morning, Joseph Lee.
Good morning, Ron. So I know you guys see my jacket today.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so this is official. I used to wear this when I was active duty, and since we seem to be under attack, I thought it would be a good reminder of what's really going on out here. You've already quoted the numbers, but just to think that we've had over 140 mass shootings, we've had over 19 school shootings. And we still have politicians that don't have a clue on what to do. We still don't have, they still are fighting back and forth. We got people in, I believe it was in Nashville, the two, brothers, and I have to get their names a little bit later. They're escaping me this early in the morning. My tea hasn't kicked all the way in. But I think they deserve, a lot of respect and admiration for being bold enough to stand up to the current status quo foolishness of doing nothing in the midst of these horrible, they call it epidemic. You talked about calling it a pandemic, but the reality is it's more of an American problem. So it's an epidemic here, but it's a serious one, and we need to take it seriously. And I always talk about having firearms myself, but thank goodness I'm reasonably mentally sound. And I have been obviously well trained on how to use firearms and know the strength of an AR, and I have one, right? But I'm not going to pretend that I have my AR to go hunting, because we know what an AR round would do to a deer. I'm have my weapons to protect my home and my family, and I really feel that's where we're at right now. And I'm not talking about from the cartel, whoever they're talking about, coming over from Mexico, whatever. We're talking about the homegrown terrorists that are right here. Look at who's committing these crimes. And see, the problem is our deficiencies in our social systems are creating these, and our mindset are creating these monsters, right? So this last situation just happened in Nashville is not a new thing. It's somebody that's disgruntled because they were about to get fired, from what I understand. So he went to his place of work and caught them early in the morning in a meeting, and then proceeded to massacre his soon to be former employees or former staff. It kind of really just is clear that folks don't have the coping skills. You know what I'm saying? They don't have the coping skills that they need to deal with situations. And see, you got to understand, we're doing that. we're doing that right now. We're not teaching our kids the coping skills, the mechanisms a lot of times. So when they have their first, situation where they're being told no, or they, we talked about this, we have I get where we were going with it, where we were talking about everybody gets an award, everybody gets a prize, everybody gets, recognized for just showing up. So what does that mindset create? That mindset of entitlement, being so inclusive and not, allowing our kids to understand there's going to be some disappointments. There's going to be some challenges that you're going to have to go through in life. I don't know anybody in my circle. Maybe we're all the old guys now, but I don't know anybody in our circle that haven't had some challenges or possibly been fired from a job before. But we wouldn't have thought of going and taking a AR or a gun up to work. We too busy trying to find the next job, or get to other employment. But now, if a child is ostracized or bullied or whatever, now the go-to is, let me go get a gun and shoot up the school. Let me go and shoot up the people that have made me mad, or whatever the case may be. I didn't get my way, so let me go and shoot up everything. And it's just, so where is it coming from? Because these are natural life occurrences. Being fired from a job is a natural occurrence. Being laid off is a natural occurrence. We just had the situation not too long ago at the post office a little while ago, where they came up and the guy came in and shot up the post office, and all those folks. We were having that issue a while back. I don't know if people remember that. Remember, we were having all the shootings at the post office and all that type of stuff. So we're not learning the lessons that life is teaching us. We're not understanding, and people always are quick to point to mental health. Look, I'm an LPC. I'm licensed in 2 states. I can tell you right off the bat, our hands are tied. Our hands are tied, because we can put a person into the hospital for suicidal ideation. We can put a person in the hospital for homicidal ideation. If it's, if there's certain things that they disclose or they say. But we've got to get to the point where we notice, okay, if a person is fired, or if a person is disgruntled, or makes that, and they caught it on the news, something, I kind of liked it, if they leak, meaning that they make a phone call, you have like almost no time to react. But if a person makes a phone call to someone that they're thinking about killing themselves or killing others, then we gotta have like a crash situation where law enforcement gets involved, and they immediately get to that person and before they have the event, which is hard. But from what I understand, in Nashville, they're live streaming this stuff. We've got the technology to track cell phones. We've got the technology to be a little more proactive, but we don't have the laws to be proactive. Isn't that crazy? We have the ability right now, I know, to track every cell phone device that's out here. We do. Except for some of the, maybe the I don't know, some of the phones. Well, most phones have have ID that they can track, and I know that. I know that's to be true because they've caught criminals trying to flee the country with their cell phone. We had somebody on the terrorist list who was trying to get out the country, and a fighter jet actually picked up his number as he was trying to get to the airport, and picked up his phone, and he was apprehended. And this happened a few years ago. So where's the technology? Where's the advance on doing that, so we can catch these folks when they make that phone call, 911, and you got that number? We need to be able to get on that real quickly while they're on their way or en route to doing something, or God forbid, live streaming what they're about to do. And if somebody is fired, why don't we have somebody on standby at some of these businesses with an AR or a MP, a automatic rifle, a long gun, to protect the place? We're going to have to stop being soft targets. We've got to stop being that. That's part of the solution. Politics has completely failed us. Politicians have completely failed us because they're stuck in their bipolar relationship, or their polarized relationship, I guess I should say. They're very clear. It's not bipolar on their response to guns. It's completely just inadequate because of the misunderstanding of the Second Amendment. We've covered that so many times. on this show about the technology of being a musket back then. They're not using a musket now. They're using military grade weapons. And we seem to keep widening those laws, not, constricting them. Every time people try to constrict them and even have to get as loud and obnoxious in Nashville, they actually expelled those two guys. And they want to talk about the racial component. And isn't that obvious that there was a racial component there as well? Yeah. I mean, it was two African-American men, the Caucasian woman, she still was able to hold her seat. But even she said it, right? So look, it's hiding in plain sight what's going on here. We've talked about it. If the politicians aren't doing anything about it, I think there's a money factor, but there's also another factor. And I think that factor is a little more diabolical. What I say at the end of this show is your actions speak so loudly, we can't hear a word you're saying. So if your actions are, you're not going to do any realistic legislation or law, and you're going to pretend to be so lost and confused while you're widening the access to guns. And then you're also giving these little secret subliminal messages, which aren't so secret or subliminal, that if Trump gets indicted or if things take our country back, and Marjorie Green is talking about wearing shirts called Enemy of the State and hats with Enemy of the State on it at her website. And they keep talking about a civil war, and nobody's really even talking about that except for them. Yeah. But they're also broadening and making sure that everybody is well armed, making sure that everybody's on edge, feeling like. And if you listen to I don't even recommend anybody listen to Fox News, because it's really not Fox News. It's more like Fox propaganda and Fox conditioning channel at this point. All they do is talk about, oh my gosh, this is a miscarriage of justice. This is, politicized. Look, did the man do it or did he not do it? If he did it and it's a crime, then he needs to suffer the consequences. And I don't care what side of the house we're talking about. If it's Democrat, Republican, if they do the crime, they got to be charged. I don't care whatever they say Hillary did or whatever. They're going after Joe Biden about his son's involvement in the embassy incident that happened years ago. Whatever, investigate it if that's what you want to do. But let's look at the scale of the crimes that are going on, the scale of it. We've got a man who's challenged our political system, which is the backbone of our democracy. He's attacking, the court system, trying to have a miscarriage of justice. And to the point where Alvin Bragg has had to now sue Congress. And what in the world is Congress doing, even interfering with this judicial process? So let it play out. I'm looking at all these folks. And it sounds like Custer's last stand, really, because they know if Trump goes down and DeSantis goes down, who do they have? And we're talking about all of this stuff doesn't happen in a vacuum, right? And even if it is a vacuum, that's even worse. If this is just random stuff where you talk about giving more access to automatic weapons, we have a mental health crisis going on in this country, and we have a political crisis going on in this country. And wait a minute, look at what's going on overseas as well. We got Russia, we got China, we got Iran, and we got little crazy Kim Jong-il, right? All trying to come together while we're fighting amongst ourselves at home. I don't know if anybody's really paying attention to all that, right? We see it. We've got so much information out here. They're not taking time to sit back and process and think about it. Now, I think there's been strong argument that Putin had possibly compromised Trump a long time ago. It's out there. Yeah. So all of this stuff, if we're not addressing the issues, and we've had politicians, and we hear politicians all the time talk about the issues facing the country, but when you start pressing them for their plan on what they're going to do to address what are the obvious issues that are going on in the country, they get confused. They don't really have a plan. Now, except for the Democrat side, I hear them saying a plan on what they want to do. They want to remove all ARs and military grade weapons. Okay. I understand the pushback that other folks are saying. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I understand what they're saying about the pushback on it. But right now, we got to do something. Because right now, the way the red flag laws are written, they're not what we've talked about on the show about maybe 4 or 5 episodes ago, that look at the red flag laws, how they work. They really don't stop. Each one, they say it on the news every time. These guns were purchased legally. This guy was not on the radar in Nashville. He was calm. He didn't have a criminal background, from what they understand. He didn't have a mental health background. So this man snaps, goes and buys an AR or two. I don't know how, I didn't read how many weapons he had, but you've got to understand the psychology of what's going on here. A lot of folks are not being raised to have the social skills to know how to have the resilience to deal with situations or setbacks. And then we have this highly politicized, polarized community. Look, stop pointing the finger at mental health, because it doesn't matter. Our mental health professionals are doing their job. We're diagnosing folks. We're treating folks. But then we pass it off and it's just documented. Documented for what? If you can't do anything about it, we documenting it, then what are you looking at us for? Look at the fact that you're not contacting these politicians. You're not just as mad as those 3 folks, those 2 brothers up there in Nashville that raised hell in that political process. That's how all of us should be. That's why I'm sitting here burning up in my doggone old military coat, because I don't know what else to do. I don't know what else to say to these folks to understand this is not a game. I don't know how many more shootings we have to have, or how many people you got to send out. I'm tired of going out and trying to explain and, trying to look in these families' faces when I really don't have any answers. See, the counseling process is supposed to help shine some light or give a silver lining or help people deal with the trauma, and that the situation is going to get better. Well, guess what? From a mental health practitioner, I'm going to tell you, I don't know if it's going to get any better. It looks like right now it's going to get worse. So stop looking for mental health, because the answer is not what you want. We as a country are mentally ill. That's the reality. Too many of us delusional and seem like we have good sense enough to figure this out. What's the threat that you're so worried about? That you got to have an arsenal, a military grade arsenal in your house. And look at who's in control of it. I personally know somebody right now, and this is not just a black-white thing. This is a gun issue, access thing that's affecting everybody. I just personally talked to somebody who I'm not going to I haven't told them I'll put their information out there, but just lost a niece because of irresponsible ignorance, where people are leaving guns that are open, and this little girl accidentally killed her sister. From what I understand, was playing with a gun. The gun dropped, bullet goes under the neck and through her head.
Mm.
So if you are a person that has a gun, if you don't have a safe, you're stupid. You're just straight stupid. If you don't have that gun in a safe or that gun locked up, you're not responsible enough to have a gun. And especially if you have a gun unlocked around kids, you're stupid. You don't need to have a gun. Anybody that's been in the military knows that even for us to have weapons, they're locked up until we use them in an exercise, or we're in a combat environment. Now, arguably, some of us maybe live in a combat environment. You see the crime, but guess what? Half of y'all, some of y'all, are the reason we're in that combat environment. And I'm gonna tell you something, how ignorant the laws are right now. Do you know that that rifle that was used in the mass shooting?
Yeah.
The way the laws are written right now, that gun is going to be auctioned off and put right back on the street.
Yep.
I was here in San Antonio, and I'm not going to give the name of the pawn shop because I feel like I should. It's on Petrenko Road. That's all I'm going to say. But I was at a pawn shop because I like to, bargain shop and all that, and they had a gun section. And I've told you about this. I told a couple people in our circle here. I said, I went looking because I had just bought, a rifle and had it placed in a rifle safe, combination lock. But I wanted to see if, what I paid was reasonable. I looked at the gun, but I noticed at the top, there was a silencer on it. An AR with a silencer on it. So I'm sitting there looking at it going, okay, in Michigan, I know that would be illegal. But in Texas, maybe not, I guess. And the salesperson, I'm going to tell you, the salesperson walked up to me from behind the counter and said, you know, I got a question. What? Tell me about this rifle right here. And before I could even get it out and ask about the silencer, her sales point was, yeah, and the silencer doesn't have any serial numbers or anything on it. It's a unmarked silencer. So you got I think it was like an M15 with a silencer on it, not traceable.
Mm.
And that's what she's trying to sell me. We have lost our minds. You don't know if I was coming in there mad because I just got fired.
Yeah.
And I could have possibly purchased it. The way the gun laws are now, I could have purchased it. Now, if I would have went in there, went off, not only could I have been killing more people because you wouldn't even be able to hear necessarily where I'm at in the building. And I did notify law enforcement. They said, oh, yeah, we're going to send an ATF. We got to send somebody over there to look into that. And when I went back in to look, that weapon was gone. But they were still selling guns. So I don't know. My solution is for every person that is killed in a mass shooting event, I think it should be a mandatory $500,000 to $700,000 fine.
Mm.
And we joked about it. There's a comedian who said, if we lift the price of bullets up to $5,000 a bullet, people maybe, you know, would have a little harder time, you know, doing this stuff. You know what I'm saying? They would have a different thought process. But, you know, I have to bring comedy in this a little bit because, you know, you got to laugh to keep from crying. But I'm telling you, we're going to have to change our mindset. We're going to have to change our mindset in this country and to a more active stance. This is way too much. It's tilt. This is way too much. And we can't sit here. The answer can't be, well, we don't know what to do anymore. We don't know how to solve this, or we don't know. No. Call your politician, tell you, if you don't do something, we don't start seeing some strong legislation, your butt's going to be out of there. And we need to keep them on the forefront every day. If there's no float, if there's no push for this, because like you said, there's ripple effects. For every active shooter situation I went to, there's ripple effects. Other families affected, whole families affected. It's not just the immediate family, it's whole communities that are affected by this.
Yeah.
How many more do we have to have? How many ripple effects do we have to have before the tidal wave happens? And I think we're starting to see the beginning of the tidal waves. When you have politicians willing to give up their career to fight and show and shine a light on the incompetence and the passive nature of these politicians that are the ones that have to make the difference in terms of the laws. You have to have a lot more teeth in this legislation and ways of dealing with and being proactive when a person is likely to become a threat. If we don't become more proactive, we're going to see more situations like this. And I don't even have to, it's common sense. It's common sense. So I'm off my soapbox on that. We've got other things we could talk about, but you know.
It's one thing I want to talk about is that 5-year-old boy who shot that teacher. Remember that?
Yeah.
Well, if I heard right, the boy is not being charged, but they're charging the parents.
Good.
That's what they're doing because
that's good.
This was a law. They said, what do we do with a 5-year-old? You know, and the first thing I brought up in my earlier show this week, I brought up the problem is not what the kids are picking up on the streets. It's at home. It starts at home. And people don't realize that the teachers are not the parents of those kids.
Mm-hmm.
Starts at home. So whatever you're doing at home, a kid will mimic that and bring it to school and want to mimic and all that and see all that. So yes, I agree. For every high school shooter, anybody under the age shooting to get hold of a gun, if the parents got to be held responsible because they're responsible for that kid until he moves out the house. So they're responsible.
Well, it's even broader than that. I just talked about somebody right here in Texas who lost a family member because somebody left a gun out and open. Your child should not have access to a firearm. Period. unless they are. Well, I don't even know. Your child shouldn't have access to your firearm. Your gun should be in a safe, locked up, and you only have the combination or the key. And I personally believe in the combination locks or the tectonic locks where by your fingerprint.
Right.
Right. So and the fingerprint locks are pretty quick. All you have to do is touch it, and the thing pops open, and you have access to your weapons. But I don't even think you should sell a firearm unless they can prove that you have a secure way to keep that gun locked up. Now, a lot of sheriff's departments have the locks that you can put on the gun itself, where you run like a little cord through the barrel, and then there's a lock so that it keeps the gun from being able to be fired. At least get that. But even then, I think a gun should still be in a safe. A rifle should be in a rifle safe. Psychologically, that does something to somebody. When they see that this thing is locked up in a safe, you know that this is a dangerous weapon. Now, you've got airsoft guns that look just like regular guns. So some kids, they're in the mindset and they're playing Call of Duty and all that. In their mind, this thing is a toy.
Yeah.
Until they find out it's not. So, and you're right, that cavalier mindset, yes, parents should be held responsible. And I think in a mass shooting situation, the distributor, like you think about it, if you go get a car and you go and mow down 20 people with that car, everybody gets sued. They look at it, the brakes failed or whatever the case may be, or did you sell that vehicle to somebody that possibly, they're gonna sue everybody. Why aren't we suing the manufacturers and the sellers of these weapons? Everybody's trying to make a profit. Well, you're profiting off the death of the American people, our kids.
Yes.
So everybody, NRA, hey, they got to be dealt with. It's the same thing with the tobacco companies. They said the same thing back in the day. Oh, they tried to prove that at one point, remember, they tried to prove that cigarettes weren't causing cancer. And it was a big deal for them to have the Surgeon General put on all cigarette purchases, all the cigarettes, I don't even know what they call it, cigarette packs that, this will cause cancer. It was a big deal for them to do that. I don't know if it really curbed sales at all, but at least they tried to do something more responsible and establish that link of causing cancer. Hopefully that saves some lives. Yeah. But, we got to do something more immediate because the result is more immediate in regards to these guns. So what can we do? Instead of venting and being upset about it, what can we do? Lean in on these politicians.
Amen to that.
And I'm talking about, even, I know this might sound graphic, but I think it's easy to be passive when you're not faced with what's going on. Make these politicians walk through the crime scenes. Send them the pictures of what are happening to the bodies of these babies when they're hit with an AR round. Let them see the results of their lack of action. See, it's a little harder a picture says 1,000 words. Well, how many bodies should we see? And I know in Uvalde, they couldn't even recognize some of these kids, because if you know what an AR round does to a body, it makes it explode. We're literally having lunatics do that to our kids and our neighbors and people that we care about in the community, while we sit back and pretend like we don't know what to do. Well, we better figure it out quick, because it's not one of your family members today, but the way it's going could be tomorrow.
It brings up a point I'm going to make. When I was in high school, they had driver ed in high school. And before you even went behind the wheel, you had to watch all the gory movies of car accidents, people dead. I mean, they showed us the whole thing to let you know, once you get behind that wheel, you're in charge of that car right there and do things right there. So we were forced to watch those movies.
I got another one for you, Ron. I remember it was right after I got my driver's license. And shout out to Grand Rapids, Michigan, Old Crescent High School, all the polar bears out there. This one day changed my whole life. We get ready to go home, or oh, I'm sorry. I showed up to school that day, and there was a mangled car, and they put it right on the front steps of the school, so that you had to go past it. And they didn't clean that car up one bit. There was still blood splattered on the car. It was all, torn up. And some of us had just got our driver's license, and we walked past that, and we had on the side, MAD, Mothers Against Drunk Driving. They didn't have to say nothing. They didn't have to make an announcement. We all knew who put that car there. We all understood the message, and all of us lodged in our head what could happen if we were irresponsible enough to drink and get behind that wheel. And these cars were all over the place. These cars are all over the place. They put these cars all over the place. We need to do that with the politicians. They want to sit behind and be cowards and fatten their paychecks. We need to let them see the carnage of their inaction and hold them accountable. If you don't have something on the books within the next few weeks, the next month or so, you will not be in office anymore. We're going to not only get you out of office, we're going to have your name out there. We're going to let you know you're one of these politicians. They're just sitting there collecting a check and allowing our kids to be slaughtered, allowing our folks to be, and you can't push it just on mental health. Look, that's like telling a bird not to fly. A mentally ill person is going to do what a mentally ill person is going to do. We have to have the controls in place to understand, okay, this person possibly could be triggered to do this. So we need to make sure we protect a person from themselves. And this is not a foreign concept. That's what an ED is. Emergency detention. That's what it is. Law enforcement can do it. Mental health professionals can do it. So why aren't we using these tools that we have in a more proactive manner? Oh, the Second Amendment, the musket law, the militia. I don't want none of these lunatics in my militia. If there was one that we have to have, I don't want none of them. And let's be honest, look at your child. Some of y'all need to look at your child. And do you really think you should have your child that's irresponsible, acting up, not paying attention to what you're doing with a military grade, access to a military grade weapon? Now, I know a lot of people say, people like me, a therapist or whatever, that know all that stuff, they call us helicopter parents, right? You can't always be on your child's business. You need to give them certain freedom. Are you crazy? Are you crazy? With all the threats that are going on, you got more threats in this phone than you could ever imagine back when we were young.
You ain't kidding.
Just look into it. Call me. I'll tell you. I'll tell you what I've seen. I don't even have to go back too far. I've been a therapist for over 15 years, but I can go back about maybe 5-6 years, and I can tell you just some of the stuff I've seen. I won't give out any information in terms of the names and all that, but I will tell you what I've seen. I have seen kids literally destroy their lives or their potential for future employment by putting something stupid on a chat.
Yeah.
I've seen some horrible. I've seen most of the kids that I have. I'll just say this: most of the kids that I have had to put into the hospital for suicidal ideation, which they had a plan and an intent. Social media was involved in about 80 to 90. Well, I'm saying higher than that. Over 90% of those. It contributed to their mental decline. And when you removed the social media, their healing and their adjustment, the social adjustment went up significantly. And didn't they just say in the last one of these last two shootings, they streamed?
Yes.
They streamed the shooting. What did they stream it on? Social media. Okay.
And somebody should see that and call the authorities right away.
That's what I started the show with. But unfortunately, in the case of the Covenant shooting, the school shooting, unfortunately, we showed you on the show, the young lady didn't know what she should do. Instead of calling 911, she called her dad because they're scared of maybe putting their friend out there. They're scared of possibly, I didn't know how to react. I didn't know how serious it was. If you don't know nothing else, if you don't hear nothing else on this show today, if somebody you know or somebody, anybody that hears this, gets a phone call like that, we have to educate people that you don't have no time. If somebody calls and says they're thinking about harming themselves, if they put in a text that I don't feel like being here, I don't feel like, I feel like I might hurt myself, or I'm going to kill myself, or I'm not going to be here after the day, whatever the case may be, treat it like a 5-alarm fire, treat it like a active shooter situation about to happen, and get those law enforcement involved. Give them their information, what they got on that day, where they're at, what car they're driving, what school they used to go to, what place of work did they work at. You better call immediately, give the police all that information. That's our first line of defense. Don't sit there and wonder if you're being a helicopter parent, or wonder if you're being, look, don't be the one that they got to interview and say, well, I just didn't know. Well, now you know.
Yeah.
You should know already because of all these situations. You don't, and I always say it. They always say it. Well, I didn't know he was going to do that. He never exhibited those signs. Well, guess what? That's what happens when a person snaps. It could be the nicest person in the world until he decides he's not going to be. Until she decides that day. See, actually, those of us in psychology know that if a person becomes really happy, all of a sudden they were previously really depressed, that's not a good sign. Because what they could have done is just commit to what they're about to do.
You must be picking my brain, because a question came in about almost exactly what you said. They asked, don't all of us have that tendency to snap at any given time?
Every person on the face of this earth has the ability and a propensity to snap at some point. And let's look at the factors that cause. I'm about to do a briefing not too long on stress and anxiety. Just like your body, if you leave something along too long that should be treated, what happens? It gets worse. We've just gone through and still going through a pandemic. I still have neighbors and people out here that are going through COVID. They're still catching it. It's not completely gone away. So I know Joe Biden said, the president said, the pandemic is over, but COVID has not gone anywhere. People are still catching it. We've had all the stress and anxiety of that. We've got all the stress and anxiety of all the things that are going on in the community, the polarization of politics, all the things that, are going on. And then we've still got the stress and anxiety of people not being able to afford groceries.
Yeah.
Not the financial stressors of that. We've got, issues affecting families of the non-binaries and all that stuff. We got all that stuff going on. And trying to understand that for some families and that process. And you see the result of that, because that was actually a direct result of what was going on with the school shooting in, was that the Covenant school, the Christian school. She was, it was a female presenting as a male.
Right.
And she lashed out. So we've got all these pressures. You got all these societal things going on. And you don't think that society, and mental health is, most mental health practitioners that have been in for a while, and I guess are more seasoned and more sought after, like my office, I've got a 6 to 7 month waiting list. So, impact counseling, I appreciate you guys calling, but I'm not seeing, I don't have any, I got a waiting list about a year out.
Man.
Now I've got some other folks who've got some great life coaches that are coming on, but those folks are seeing non-clinical issues. We're talking about, non-medical. It could be medically related, but these are non-clinical issues. And we've got a couple of therapists that are coming on One or two therapists I'll be bringing on here soon. They can deal with clinical issues, but very quickly, if I got a year wait list, what do you think is going to happen with them? They're going to get, booked out pretty quickly. So all these folks are here, their issues are not being treated. So what do you think is going to happen nationally? More of these situations. It's not rocket science. So if mental health is already overstretched, we've got all these weapons on the street, and politicians with not any good common sense enough to know what to do about it, or at least even help with the red flag laws for those people that can get to a mental health practitioner. We say this person is unstable and should not have access to firearms. What do you think is going to happen? Well, what's happening? Yeah. That's why I'm wearing this military jacket today, because that's what all of us probably should have on right now with a vest under it. Now, it might sound like an overreaction, right? But does it? Do you know if there's going to be a school shooting today? Do you know if there's going to be another mass shooting today? I don't. Do you know where it's going to be? I don't. Do we have any light coming from the politicians? I don't see any. So where does the change have to start? It has to start right here with the grassroots, the 10,000 listeners that we have. We need to be out doing something. Don't sit here and just go, man, he's right. If you, and listen, whoever's out here that don't vote.
Yeah.
Get your head out of whatever sandbox is in, whatever, because if you don't vote, you don't matter to this political process. And I get it. I know what you're saying. Well, the right don't seem to work for us. The left don't work for us. So look, I tell you what, nothing gonna work for you if you're not seen. And that's part of this polarization. They want people to be so frustrated that either they don't act or they're going to act irrationally. We have to go back to what works or has been somewhat working, the advances that we have had. Get involved. Get involved en masse. And then you can start influencing the change. Contacting congressmen, contacting senators. But here's the thing. If you lead off with, I don't vote, but what do you think they're going to do? Delete, next.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up, because there was a survey that came out in Florida. DeSantis is a Republican governor there. Do you know, in that election, they almost came up with 50% of the Democrats didn't vote in the 2020 election, all because they know their vote didn't count.
Look, I don't care what your argument is for not voting. Out of respect of the people like John Lewis and others that have died to give you that right to vote, don't disrespect your ancestors and those that came before you like that.
Yeah.
If you don't like the political process, here's a question. Or here's a statement. Do something. What did you do, Ron, to help in the political process? What did you do?
I decided to go ahead and see how the process was ran in the voting, and I'm now Bexar County election judge.
Do something. Did that cost you any money to do that?
Not a cent.
Okay. So now you actually have more say, and not just your vote, but now in making sure that process runs more equitable, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Do something. We got a lot of people. I used to put my posts and things on Facebook and all that. I said, no, I got to put some more action out here. I got all these likes. Look, I don't care if you like what I say or you don't like what I say. But I'm not one of those that just sat back and just watched Fox or CNN or whatever to get my opinions. I did my research. I've gone to school to get my credentials, to get my degrees. And also I'm out here trying to do what I can to make a difference.
Yeah.
I've mentored, I don't know how many young men in our fraternities program, the Kappa Alpha Psi, our Guide Right program. Look it up. It's well established. We're the #1 mentorship program in the region, which is the largest region in the fraternity, which arguably is the #1 Kappa League program in the country. I challenge all Greek letter organizations, the Qs, the Alphas, the Sigmas, whoever, to get involved with their mentorship program and educate these young men on what it means to be a young man in this society, in this country, and how to navigate things. Now, they may not want to hear some of this stuff. I didn't want to hear some of it when I was younger. But you know what? It planted seeds that helped me to navigate when I started saying, oh, yeah, that's what Mr. Lee was talking about. That's what Mr. Smart was talking about. That's what Dr. Franks was talking about. That's what Mr. Triplett was talking about. That's what these people that have navigated the barriers that I was going through are going to go through, and how to help me move. If we're not doing that, we're failing. All right. I don't care about the parties are good. You know, twirling the cane is cool. Throwing up whatever you throw up, you know, that's all great. But if you're not doing anything affecting these kids and helping to navigate this ever-changing and crazy landscape, you are failing. And your founders would tell you you're failing. The whole point of this was to educate our youth, as well as to, you know, have some camaraderie in a society that wanted to exclude us. Well, guess what? They still want to exclude us. Do you think to make America great again is involved in us? If you think that, you need to really research and read in between the lines.
What's that old saying back in the days when we actually had respect for our elders? We watched what they did. We didn't ask any questions, and we learned the wisdom from them by listening. And the old saying said, "Kids are seen and not heard."
Listen,
and that's what we did back in the days. And but now you look at the shape now. These kids are smart enough; they want to be heard.
Ron, I got to take this jacket off before I pass out, man. This thing is hot, but you know, it's not for warm environments.
And
but,
then why don't you get your 80-pound backpack and all that stuff and walk around?
Look here, man. I did all that. That's for somebody.
I'm checking to see if you still got it, my brother.
No, I probably could do it, but I sure couldn't do it for 2 miles and 10 miles now. I might make it to the end of the block, and y'all gonna have to call for support. Come get me, because this ain't gonna work too well. But what I would tell you, man, is it's a real situation. This isn't. It's not a joke, and I don't know what else. Hey, I had to do something to try to get some attention to more than just talking about it, man. And I know we got some people that have contacted me and said, yeah, they're going to do something. They're going to start writing and all that. But we have to do more of that. The 10,000 listeners, I challenge each one of you to do something today that a politician would hear and know that you are seriously concerned. I know I've written the Justice Department on some things that I have seen that I'm concerned about. And actually, I'm starting to see some action on some of the things that I wrote about. Because, I mean, if those are, especially all my military personnel, those who raise your right hand against enemies, foreign and domestic. Come on now. That wasn't said as a joke. That was said, that's a vow that we took. This is part of my vow. This is why I get up here every Wednesday at 7 o'clock in the morning. There's other things I could be doing, including sleep, because I went out to Horizons last night, so I could have been sleeping. You know, but trust me, I tell you. Hey, listen, I know it's past your bedtime, Ron, but both of us can't be hanging out. We got to keep one of us accountable to being responsible, right? But it was a good show out there. I love Horizons and more. It's a safe environment. From what I see, a lot of grown folks having fun, having grown fun. That's okay. But at the same time, it's rare that you find places where you can feel secure. And that's unfortunate. That's unfortunate, because after a pandemic of being locked away for 2 years and not being able to go anywhere, it's a shame that now you got to look over your shoulder. If you hear a firecracker go off or a car backfire, I'm feeling like I'm back in Flint, Michigan again, back in the hood. Because you just never know when somebody's going to, as the kids say, pop off. You never know. So we got to be more aggressive, proactive in dealing with this, understanding mental illness and how susceptible people are. Anybody, like the person that called in with the question, can anybody snap? You better believe it. We're only one firing away, one loss of a family member away, one loss of a relationship away of possibly snapping. Just drive around. Those of us that are in San Antonio, we see a lot of people that seem to be on the edge when they drive.
Oh, yeah, most definitely.
And I don't understand it, because there's going to be a stoplight up there somewhere. So you driving 110 down the highway and you see the person at the stoplight, you're like, wow, really? What did that do for you?
And mad because you wouldn't let them around. And that's another thing you're talking about people snapping is the drivers, they just road rage is getting out of hand too. And that's another ripple effect with that hits families. Somebody get out, like that couple down in Houston at time was blatantly firing at this car dealership over there, bullets flying all over the place.
You know, we said there's a character that we used to watch when we were younger. Yosemite Sam.
Yes.
It didn't take much for Yosemite Sam to start shooting up everywhere. Just, you know. And I swear we're not becoming, I don't know. It seemed like we really becoming a society of Yosemite Sams. Just quick to just start shooting off, not caring where the bullets. And you know the interesting thing? He never shot his target. Now he would shoot all around, but he would never shoot his target. That's kind of where we at, you know, with a lot of folks. Now, unfortunately, some of the folks are shooting their target, right?
Yeah.
And it's a target that shouldn't be shot. It's something that we shouldn't even be in this camp. We shouldn't even be having these conversations, right? But because we got folks that just aren't getting it, or maybe they are getting it. Is this because you brought up an interesting point, Ron? And I don't know, man. You always bring up these interesting points. But you said, well, you know, if they maybe you said maybe this is the plan. Yeah, maybe this is the plan, right? If they're not doing anything about it, maybe that's what they're doing about it. So if this is their plan, what's the outlook? What's the thing? Are we supposed to be so unstable of a society? And there was an argument. I'm sure that I have to find that argument. There was an argument that I saw a while back, and it's really interesting. That if you want to have a people dependent on you, make the society so unstable that they have to listen to you because there's no other rational force out there, so they have to just listen to whatever you say.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll see if I can pull that up. You know, if I can find that, and we will bring that on the next show. But there's actually a logic to it. And so how many all these folks are just blindly following folks is because things are so crazy that you listen to anybody that's in authority. There's things called the Stockholm syndrome,
Yes.
right? Where you somehow, you know, fall in love with the person that's oppressing you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't know. There's got to be something going on while we can sit here and watch all these shootings and not hold the people accountable to the laws, or, you know, to actually regulate this accountable. And it don't seem like it's happening anytime soon. So what's it going to take? That's my question. What is it going to take? How many more people are going to have to die? How many kids are going to have to be killed before we go, you know what? We got to do something about this. And here's what we can do. What else is it going to take? That's the question.
And we're waiting on the answer.
Well,
the answer is we need to get together and vote these people who's been in office, career politicians, out. I always said this: if they went in at 30 years old with that mindset and they're now 80, to me, they still got that mindset. They have not evolved at all.
And the status quo is not going to work.
Yeah.
It's not going to work. Right. So I try to get these names of the Nashville Democrats. One of them that was reinstated, Justin Jones.
And the other Justin Pearson. I think it's Pearson, the other one. McPherson or Pearson.
Yeah, Justin Pearson.
Yes.
Yeah. We need to rally behind and send messages to Nashville. I'm gonna see if I can send something today. Hey, they are the voice that represents what I want to see happen. At the First Amendment, freedom of speech, and you know, people, I don't think people realize this. You're supposed to disrupt a system that's inadequate. Now, I'm gonna teach everybody something about Robert's Rule of Order, right? When they're going through a proceeding and they're doing all these votes or whatever, you can stand up and say point of order and interrupt the whole process. And that means you get the floor. And then you can say what you need people to do. Now they can, keep saying, no, that's not the right time, whatever. No, you just say point of order. This means that this thing is not running in order. If you're not addressing the needs of the people, then you're out of order, because that's what you've been sent up there to do. So I would say that Justin Pearson, Justin Jones, is it Justin Pearson and Justice Jones? Or I think we're doing something. Is that right?
No, they both got the same name for Justin. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just making sure. It's still early.
Well, the other one, Pearson's supposed to be sworn back in today.
Hey, I hope so. I hope
Today.
so. Ron,
Yes.
let me ask you something, man. What is behind you, man? Because it's kind of freaking me out. It's a mask. Is this something behind you, man? You messing?
It's my headphones.
No, look behind you. Is it something like a blue shirt or something behind you, man?
No.
No, man. Hey,
I see.
You need to cut that filter off a second so I can see what's going on. I saw a face. Hey, watch your video. I saw a face. I'm like, oh shoot, this is like a horror movie.
Yeah, I do see the blue back there now. Look, that blue.
But if you move, it's like a little face or something back there behind your head, and I'm like, oh,
it is.
I'm watching.
It's my TV.
Scary movies.
Now it should have disappeared. It was a TV.
Oh, is that what it was?
Yeah.
I watched too many movies, man. Watch it take, man. It was like a face or something behind your head with a.
It was 45 was on the news. Maybe you seen him. I just couldn't.
Well, that is scary. 45 is behind your head. That's an offshoot where I didn't heard about the show, man.
Yeah. Hey, one point you were making when Marjorie Taylor Greene had the hats and all that on about doing it, talking about we don't like big government, we don't like government taking over. I just don't think the logic that they're thinking that they are the government. How are they going to announce the government and they are the government?
We covered it last week, man. Their tactic is called gaslighting. It's gaslighting. They know exactly what they're doing. They're manipulating the alternative facts they're laying out, and that's a form of manipulation. And then you basically accuse the other people of what you're trying to do. You see it in dysfunctional relationships all the time. The person that's cheating accuses the other person of cheating to kind of mess with their head and make them think that maybe they're causing the situation or maybe they are cheating, right? It's a mind, kind of like a evil Jedi mind trick. I'm going to present what I want you to feel about you and also fool my constituents into thinking that this is what's going on. So you got to think about it for a second. If the politicians that are protecting the rights for ARs are also the same ones that are saying we need to fight against crime. Well, what's the number one crime right now? Mass shootings.
Yeah.
Well, they're protecting the right for the people that are doing the mass shootings to have access. Now, I would understand if maybe the people that didn't have the mental health issues or her SNAP were actually interceding and stopping these folks from committing the mass shootings, but that's not happening. So they're saying, oh, well, the answer is pour more guns on the situation.
Yeah.
So that's a perfect example of, yeah, we're going to manipulate the situation to make you think we're working for you when they're actually the problem.
They have Jim Jordan. He wants to go to New York and get on his case about the crime in New York City. They did a deal and found out crime was down in New York City, but it was up 22% in Columbus, Ohio, where Jim Jordan is from. Don't go to New York City, go to your own state. Now, did he have something to say about that? No, he deflected the answer somewhere else, like I always do.
The only way these folks like Jim Jordan, these gaslighting politicians, that should be what the G in GOP stands for, is gaslight. Because the only way they can exist is if you don't do your research on them. See, look at what they're saying And this guy got on, he loves the interview on Fox News, right? Listen to what he's saying and look at it. I talk about the plans that he's offering. If you want to challenge some of these folks on the far right, ask them, what's your plan? Okay, I see you criticize because they all they have been is the party of no. All they do is say no. No, this isn't going to work. No, this is not constitutional. Yes, no, this is socialism. That's all they do. They try to scare you. Remember, greed, fear, and phobias.
Yes.
Okay, that's the platform they run on. They don't really have any facts. They have alternative facts, which are lies. That's what an alternative fact is. It's a lie. And I'm really not sure. I know that 45 has mental illness. We know that, right? But along with that mental illness is a diabolical nature because all these threats, I don't know who pointed this out to me. Might have been my buddy Glenn, I think, it pointed this out. It might have been you. We talk a lot. But there's a reason why Alvin Bragg is suing Jim Jordan. There's a reason why. How many judges have been killed because of the rhetoric from the far right? Need to look into it. How many people that have opposed this foolishness on the far right in terms of judges have been killed? So the politicians like Alvin Bragg, their families are being threatened. The Georgia is the governor, I forget, is it the governor of Georgia or whoever it is that the attorney general that is possibly going to be indicting Trump? They said, if you play with me if you want to, put some out there about attacking my family or whatever, they're coming for you with more criminal charges. But they know exactly what they're doing because there are people that have died because of this foolishness. And they seem to be going after the legislators, decision makers. So there's a strategy. Right now, it is going after the legislators, going after the judges. Look up how many judges have been affected in the threats that they're getting on family members. So to me, it sounded like they're becoming more like terrorists. And Marjorie Greene, if you go to her site, you can buy a shirt that says enemy of the state and a hat. It's a gray hat, gray shirt that says enemy of the state. So they know what they're doing. But follow it on out. If you want to be an enemy of the state, then okay, then we treat you like Al-Qaeda. No problem. Since you want to be that. Now, there's one thing to protest, but then to become an enemy of the state and arm people.
And the elected official.
Yeah, elected official. So, and Bragg is suing Jim Jordan over a campaign to intimidate and attack. Well, you know what? I understand how to deal with folks like that. That's why I put that jacket on. That's why I raised my right hand, because we were fighting against terrorists. Enemies, foreign and domestic. If you're talking about using violence to achieve your ends, you got to be dealt with. If you can't have an intelligent discourse and come up with a plan to deal with the issues, because see, the whole thing about democracy is dependent on a well-educated population. Educated means you have to be able to critically think on your own, not get your talking points from Fox News that don't have any talking points when you challenge them a little bit. They know that most of the people that follow them are brainwashed. That's why they don't have to come with any substance. All they have to push is greed, be based on greed, fear, and phobias. They know that. If you ask anybody on the far right, what's your plan? You're going to stump them. Because all they can tell you is what they don't want. Okay, so what do you want? How is it supposed to work? How is what your plan going to be sustainable? And they know they don't have anything. They never did. It really went full tilt when Barack Obama was president, because all they had to do is Barack Obama said left, they would say right. If he said up, they would say down. If they said blue, if he said blue, they would say black. That's all they had to do. So that worked for them. They got people in office in that.
Yep.
But it didn't work for us as a people. But then the Jedi mind trick, the manipulation, the gaslight caused people to start thinking, well, maybe the Democrats are the problem because, nobody wants to work with them. So they need to work more with the right. Problem is the right doesn't really have a plan. And when you look at their plan, they know it's not even going to work.
It's 2 pages. Their budget was 2 pages. The other plan is they all have committee meetings about the committee for the committee. You don't need to have like with the gun shooting, all the mass shootings going on out there. Their plan was to have a committee to go and see what they need to do. Every time there's a shooting, that's the committee. You know what's going on. You don't need to put everybody together in the room for 8 months and talk about shooting. No, it's every time somebody's killed in America with mass shooting, that's committee right there. You need to sit down and do something about it. You don't need to sit behind closed doors and whisper to each other of what we're not going to do.
You tell me if I'm wrong. Either we have some of the dumbest politicians in the history of this country, or we have some of the most diabolical ones. We have some of the most misguided and untrustworthy ones and incompetent ones. Because here's the reality. Here's the reality. Either you have a plan, or even if you don't have a plan, that's still a plan. Because if the issue is this urgent and you don't have a plan, that tells me that's your plan. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
If your house is burning down, you are the one sitting at the fire hydrant, and you're responsible for hooking up the hose to the fire hydrant, but you don't know how to do it. Who's at fault? Is it the fire hydrant's fault? Is it the fire's fault? Because the fire is going to do what the fire is going to do. We are on fire and under fire here in the United States. And the people at the hydrant are going, oh, well, it's the fire's fault. It's whoever set the fire's fault. So you're going to let the house burn down, and you at the hydrant, but you're going to blame the fire. Well, your intent must be for the house to burn down.
Which is one of my quotes I use all the time. The problem is not the problem. The problem is your attitude about the problem.
And your lack of action.
Yes.
Because I guarantee you, if you're going to be real about it, if their children weren't protected by the Secret Service, if their livelihood and their life, if the stores, they send their people to shop for them, if they had to go and get in harm's way. Have you ever been to Washington? You can't go nowhere because every time one of the congressmen or senators leave, they have a whole motorcade.
Yep, exactly.
It's a parade. You go to Washington every day. When they leave, you can't get nowhere because it's a motorcade every time, little mini motorcades going everywhere. They're not as worried. Now, the one time I thought that might happen was when they had a little baseball game a few years ago, and somebody showed up and started shooting at them. And for a split second, they were like, we're really going to have to do something about these gun laws. And then they realized, wait a minute. If I piss off the NRA, I'm not going to be able to pay for my house in the Hamptons. Well, I'm not going to be able to get that money, for my campaign.
Yeah.
So that's why we're going through what we're going through.
Ooh.
Bought and sold politicians are selling out our kids' future and selling out our future. And look, if I'm looking at it right now, it makes me sick to my stomach. If you type in Jim Jordan, you want an example of gaslighting, there's a picture of him that pops right up that says he's in front of a sign talking about protecting America now. How is he protecting America? How is he protecting America? hasn't offered one piece of legislation that's going to protect America. Attacking the judicial process that's trying to be fair. I mean, if Trump didn't do anything, he shouldn't have nothing to worry about. Right? If I'm guilty, if I'm not guilty and I didn't do anything wrong, I'm like, hey, let's run it. Let's go to court. I got 5 attorneys. One of them should be worth something.
One?
No, because really, if you know anything about the judicial process, all you have to do is poke enough holes in the case, and you can be charged. Now, the fact that I can be charged with 34 felonies must be something there. You know what I'm saying? 34 felonies. Look at the process of how a felony comes about. They don't just throw it up in a Cracker Jack box and say, oh, we're going to hit you with this one, this one, this one. No, there's a long process. And now we see why it took so long, because they wanted to make sure they could prove 34 felonies. And then people didn't hear the rest. There's potentially more. And I guarantee you there's more, because the prosecution never leads with everything. And that's just on the small one. So these folks know what's about to happen. That's why they're trying to hit and confuse the waters as much as possible and try to keep everything in the limelight. Because they can say, oh, well, there's no way he was going to have a fair trial. Listen, he's the president, was the president. He ain't the president now, and probably shouldn't have been the president then. A twice impeached president, and all the things he came to the table with, you know that there's got to be some things there. If you have any ounce of common sense, you got to know that there's some things there. And we need to deal with this one. And I know what they say. Well, what about all the other politicians? Okay, well, let's just do this. You're driving down the highway. The person in front of you is going 85. You going 80. Person behind you is going about 82. The police hit you with the radar. Now, how's that argument going to work? Well, he was going fast as me and he was going fast as me. You still going to get the ticket.
Yes.
So, hey, the radar hit Trump. He got 34 felonies that showed up on that radar. Either he did it or he didn't. Now, if you want the radar to hit somebody else, hey, their day will come too. But right now it's Trump's day, first day. And not only does he have New York, he's got Georgia, he's got the January 6th folks coming. So that's who you want to run your party?
Let's not
good luck with that.
He's got that rape case coming up against him too.
Hey, good luck with all that. That ain't my fault you got a well-known criminal, run-of-the-field alleged criminal. But if you got that person that's facing that many charges, and so then what they do is, just like a spoiled kid that don't like the fact that they got caught, they blame the process. Well, didn't have no problem with the process when, like Richard Pryor used to say, went down to find justice and found just us.
Yeah.
Well, now they finding just them getting caught up in some of this mess. And now, oh, the judicial system is unfair. Are you serious? Are you serious? We just got last month a brother that was in jail for 20-something years. It was not guilty. And there's still some folks in jail that they can establish that have no legal precedent. They were put in jail wrongly. And we got people walking around that should definitely be, at least right now, if the judicial system was fair, Trump should be incarcerated right now and waiting trial. He didn't even have to take a mugshot. They offered to let him be arraigned by Zoom. So don't give me this, this is such an unfair process and all that. That's the stuff that you flush down the toilet. And I don't know who you think you fooling, but all y'all, and I know why they're covering for them, because when that January 6th committee come up, some of their names are going to come up.
Oh, they already know that. You know they know that.
Yeah. So they got to get their money together now. They got to get enough their money together for their day in court. So it's coming, you know.
Yeah.
And here's the thing: watch, and here I predict this: all these staunch Republicans that are on the fence, like a buddy of mine said, that before he had all that Trump stuff out in his yard and all that, and then now once Trump's gotten indicted, all that stuff just magically disappeared. People are going to start pulling away and start walking away from these folks. To me, Trump seems like a modern day Caesar. Now, he already got stabbed once by Michael Cohen. And if you read the history of Caesar, watch what happens with everybody else. Eventually, he's been stabbed by Cohen. Pinson already kind of stabbed him a little bit. Who's that speaker? Mitch McConnell, he already stabbed him. So what happens? Little by little, they take their turn stabbing the previous the previous king. And he's already going at DeSantis right now. If you watch, I watch all the news channels to see what type of propaganda goes out there. They're already attacking DeSantis, saying he's not fit to be president. Trump is fighting for his life, literally, politically, and probably otherwise. Because see, what you understand is when you're an aristocrat, when you're or a dictator or a king, whatever you think you are, when you lose power, you're most vulnerable.
Amen to that.
All those people that were intimidated by you, they then go at you. All those people that you misled, they then turn against you. One of the Russian, I forget this guy's name. I have to look it up here. It's one of the Russian arms dealers, I believe it is, said that Trump's life is in danger. That's what he said. You know why he said that? Because in his country, all the previous dictators, what happened to them? What happened to the Bolsheviks? I've said it on this show. You better not show up for the family photo. So check the history. Check the history. It doesn't end well for people like that. When people realize that he has actively, either intentionally or unintentionally, deceived all these folks, and people in January 6th, when those investigations, they were coming around, when they realized they were facing real charges, and Trump wasn't coming to save them, they started waking up. They started waking up, didn't they?
Yeah, he said, y'all go ahead. I'll get you out of jail. I'll do this for you, do that for you. Didn't happen.
Hey, just like a pimp. Just like a pimp. Hey, you guys are special people. Special. Not, I can't say that because I don't want to disrespect any of the kids in school that are in special ed, but special meaning you stupid enough to just follow what I say and put your livelihood and I'm out. I ain't gonna do nothing for you.
What was it our parents always told us? You gonna follow if he jumps off the bridge, are you gonna jump off the bridge too?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I guess they proved it, didn't they? So I'm trying to find this guy, the Russian, that said Trump's life's in danger. And I'm gonna find it real quick.
Why look at it? We got somebody.
Oh, yeah, Russia's merchant of death warns Trump. I don't want people thinking I'm saying this. This is what if you go to Newsweek, Russia's merchant of death warns Trump that his life is in danger. Vladimir, his name? Victor Bout, a convicted Russian arms dealer, said on Russian state TV that he sent a telegram to Donald Trump warning him of an imminent threat to his life and urging him to flee to Russia for safety. Now, this is not me. This is Newsweek. Now, I've been talking about what Trump's plan was a while ago about his escape plan. Now, take a look at this dude. I dare you to look it up. and see if he don't look like somebody real familiar in history with the way his mustache is cut and his hairstyle. That's all I'm saying.
Oh,
So
yeah.
he's real concerned about his buddy Trump, a convicted Russian arms dealer, Victor Bout. Now you look him up. Everybody that's listening, type in Victor Bout online when you got and look at the picture of him and who in history does he look like? What style is he going for? I'm just saying he looked just like a neo-Nazi. Just like, man, can you look it up real quick? Type in Victor Bout and see what you can see real quick. I know we're a little bit over.
That's all right.
Now, what do you see? Give everybody a chance to look it up.
Victor Bout.
Bout, B-O-U-T, and it's spelled V-I-K-T-O-R. Look at him. Now, who does he look like?
Let's say my internet. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That's all I got to say, man. A picture is worth 1,000 words. That's worth about 20,000 words.
Yep, I see it.
Yeah. So everybody read up on that. Now, why is he so concerned about Trump?
That's a good question.
Yeah. Well, connect the dots. Use as they say in school, put your thinking cap on and think about it. Now, all these extreme right-wing folks who want to follow behind Trump.
He challenges new entrepreneurs face. Who is going to set up?
Yeah, look at who you're following. Look at what you're following. You might want to start distancing yourself as soon as possible, because history is not going to have you where you think you are. At the best case scenario, what you're going to be able to say is, well, I didn't know all that. I didn't know what's the word they like to say? Well, I didn't know what to believe.
Yeah.
What did your instinct tell you? You know, you got good sense? And what one of your colleagues, one of our fans say, well, my husband's an idiot. Remember that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, an idiot. She called him a moron.
Oh, I'm sorry, moron. I used the wrong. I'm sorry, I used the wrong adjective. But again, we can't afford to be a moron or an idiot. Now, there's some serious ramifications to us letting these folks run the country. It's time. What they say, Jesus take the wheel. We need Jesus. We need some sensible people. We need some people that are going to do some real life legislation to protect our kids. If nothing else, let's get the kids protected in the schools. Make sure that we get some real legislation in place to protect our community. I don't want us to have to really walk around with Army flak jackets and vests and all that stuff.
Yeah, that's not cool.
But it is what it is, right? It is what it is. So with that being said, I know we're over. Your actions speak so loudly, can't hear a word you're saying. So I would like to see some action, because even your inaction speaks so loudly, I can't hear a word you're saying. Write somebody, write a congressman, write a senator, get out there, educate somebody, have them watch the show, at least so they can, talk about it. And if you want to challenge me, let's go. Contact the station. Say, well, I don't think you're right because of this, that, or the other. We haven't had nobody do that.
Yeah, if you want to contact the station, it's 210-461-8034.
Yeah. Hey, I believe in full contact conversation. If you think you're right, come. But here's the deal. Don't show up and not be able to back up what you got to say. Because everything I talk about in this show, I'll back up. I'll back it up. And, I'm not going to go into too many recent events. If you step in front of us with some half-baked ideas, you've now entered the lion's den, and we're going to send you back home to rethink your strategy or whatever, because that degree down there, they didn't give it to me. I earned it.
There you go.
All right. So with that being said,
I could put this plug in there. If you're not ready for prime time, don't show up.
Don't show. Hey, what's my name? Prime time. You know, showtime, right? So, all right then.
All right, man. You take care, Joseph.
Hey, look, I gotta leave with it right here. We on prime time.
Oh, there it is. Prime time in the house.
All right.
Bro.
Talk to
Talk
y'all
to you
later.
later. All right. Goodbye.